60 Minutes Rewind.
Richard Jewell, the man the FBI and the media zeroed in on as the principal suspect in the Atlanta Olympic bombing, says it's all a lie. And if it turns out that he's right, it could be a very expensive lie. When we caught up with Jewell this week in Atlanta, he said that he and his attorneys were preparing to sue, among others, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and some reporters, Tom Brokaw of NBC at the top of their list, and, conceivably, the FBI. Does Richard Jewell have a case? Was he libeled? That's what we went to Atlanta to find out. Who are you going to sue?
Myself and my attorneys are looking at everyone and anyone who has said libelous things, who have done things to me and my mother.
It was the first time Jewell has spoken since he was fingered as the principal suspect in the bombing that killed one woman and injured more than 100 people. Before the bomb went off, Jewell was working as a security guard in Centennial Park, guarding the AT&T tower there, when he says that he noticed an olive green backpack under a bench.
About this size?
No, sir. Probably
bigger.
Yes, sir. 2 foot by 3 foot, probably.
And he says he became concerned when a group of men who'd been drinking near that bench left the area without the bag. Jewell says he alerted another officer.
He turned around, went back over to them. A conversation took place where more or less they said it wasn't theirs. He came back. He said, they say it's not theirs. And I said, well, that's funny. They've been sitting on top of it for about 30, 45 minutes. At that point, we upgraded it to a suspicious package.
A federal agent from ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, was called to the scene.
He crawled under the bench, and with his pen light, he was laying flat on his stomach, and he was undoing the top of the bag with his hand, and he was doing his flashlight like this, and all of a sudden he just froze. And he tensed up, and he just rolled, not even moving his arms, he just rolled out of the way. When he rolled out of the way, he jumped up and ran over to the other agents that were standing about 10 feet away. What really made me think this is bad, is there was like a little line in training that they taught you that would instill in you, and it was, if you see an ATF agent running, you better be in front of him.
So did you start to run too?
No, sir.
You stayed there within 10 yards of where the package was?
Yes, sir. We were just concerned with getting the people as far away as we could, as quickly as we could. And you know what has been a real pain for me is several of the officers were my friends, and I had gotten to know quite a few of them. And when the blast finally did go off, these guys had put their bodies between them and the people on the benches that wouldn't move and the package. They put their bodies straight in line with those people that they were trying to get moved. And when I was knocked down, as I was getting up, I looked, and 2 of those guys were flying through the air. And I still haven't got to see them since this happened.
Well, what do you mean you haven't gotten a chance to see them since?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Well, it would be a career-ending thing for them if somebody that the FBI suspects of doing a bomb showed up on their doorstep to see how they were doing. Their life would be investigated like mine has been. I wouldn't wish that on any of my friends, sir.
Richard Jewell, was he a villain or a hero? It was a story that few reporters could resist.
I don't know if you ever saw this.
No, sir, I didn't see it.
What's your reaction to it?
Probably sold some papers that day.
The Atlanta Journal was the first to report that you were a suspect. But not only that, they said that you fit the profile of a lone bomber, a frustrated police wannabe who wanted to become a hero, suggesting that you planted the bomb yourself so that you could come off as a hero. Now, when you read that kind of thing about yourself,
it's all a lie. whatever will sell or keep the story in the news is what they've been saying.
The Journal also reported that Jewell sought publicity for himself in a series of interviews, TV and print, after the bombing. Fact is, a public relations man for AT&T, Bryant Steele, told us it was the media, not Jewell, who requested those interviews. And Steele told us it was his idea, not Jewell's, to give an interview to the Atlanta Journal. AT&T was the company that had hired the security firm Jewell worked for. The Journal also reported that investigators believed Jewell was the bomber and that he made a 911 call warning about the bomb before it exploded. But Jewell's attorneys later demonstrated that the call was made while Jewell was still clearing spectators from Centennial Park. The Journal and other media also delved into Jewell's past. You worked for a while at Piedmont College, right?
About a year, yes, sir.
As a campus cop. You were forced to resign from that job, am I wrong?
I was asked to resign, yes.
The president of the college told the FBI Jewell lost his job there because of his overzealous police work. That was in the Journal, too. But the truth, says Jewell, is that authorities at the college were upset because he made arrests for drugs and drunk driving there.
And the college was small. They didn't want their name in the paper by me making any arrests.
The college president declined to talk to us. Lynn Wood is one of Richard Jewell's attorneys. Who are you going to sue?
Well, we have said we're looking at everyone from A to Z, anyone that said anything false about Richard Jewell, anyone that was responsible in the news. We start with A, and we expect to sue first the Atlanta Journal and Constitution. They published a lot of information trying to prove that he was the bomber, information that we believe to be false.
The editor of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution agreed to talk to us about the paper's coverage, but then, abruptly, he canceled the interview. He sent us this fax instead. Our reporters have done an excellent job of reporting the bombing, Editor Ron Martin said. We stand proudly behind our coverage. Attorney Wood also said he's preparing to sue NBC for the comments anchorman Tom Brokaw made during the network's primetime Olympics coverage.
The speculation is that the FBI is close to making the case in their language. They probably have enough to arrest him right now, probably enough to prosecute him, but you always want to have enough to convict him as well. There are still some holes in this case.
When Tom Brokaw makes those kinds of statements, the insinuation is that they've got their man, and their man is Richard Jewell. Interestingly, Richard Jewell has never been arrested, certainly not tried, and will never be convicted. Richard Jewell's an innocent man. That tape indicates that Mr. Brokaw thought otherwise that night.
Tom Brokaw gave us an answer to Attorney Lynn Wood's charge.
You know, my job is to report what we're able to find out about what was a crisis in Atlanta, that they were focusing their investigation on this one man. And why, in the course of a conversation with Bob Costas, if they were doing that, had they not arrested him, I reflected for him what the theorizing was in the law enforcement community, and then I pointed out that this had been the speculation and finished that conversation with Bob Costas by saying, everyone, please understand absolutely, he is only the focus of this investigation. He's not even a suspect yet.
Brokaw told me he had knowledgeable sources for his report at 3 federal agencies.
I will tell you that they were very high-ranking federal law enforcement officials in Washington and in Atlanta.
Who leaked Richard Jewell's name to the Atlanta Journal?
We do not know the name of the specific individual, but it's our information that it was an FBI agent who leaked the story and the basic background information to the Atlanta Journal, who then took that information and received confirmation of the story from the Atlanta Police Department.
The story will continue after this.
The FBI refused to discuss its investigation, refused to say whether Jewell is still a suspect, and refused to discuss the leak.
They wanted something very public. If they wanted something to be inconspicuous, they would never have leaked me to the press.
Can you stop for a second, please? Did you turn around? Where were you at 1 o'clock on that morning? What kind of questions were they asking?
Have you ever seen an FBI investigation this public before? I can't remember ever seeing one. Ever.
During the Olympics, Jewell was staying at the apartment of his mother, Bobby.
I felt like it was a movie production. every light. There must have been 20 satellite trucks in our parking lot. I'm living a nightmare.
As the media watched, Jewell and his mother were forced out of the apartment while the FBI searched for evidence inside.
What'd they take out of your apartment?
They took Richard's guns, which he has always hunted. He deer hunts. Then they took all of my Tupperware. I mean, every piece of Tupperware. They took 22 of my Walt Disney tapes.
Attorney Watson Bryant also represents Jewell. He's been his friend for 10 years.
Is there any action you can take against the FBI?
If they didn't have probable cause to search Richard's in his mother's apartment, then you can bet that we'll be all over them.
You mean money damages?
Yes, absolutely.
You took a lie detector test?
Yes, sir, I did. My attorneys gave me 3 separate tests, and I passed all 3.
If you're so certain that he's absolutely innocent of all this, why didn't you let the FBI give the polygraph test?
I don't trust the FBI. The FBI has told us a number of stories through this, and I don't trust them one lick. I think that there are people in the FBI or in the Justice Department that don't give one damn whether or not Richard Jewell is actually the bomber.
He's being unjustly...
Watson Bryant says the FBI hasn't told the truth about Jewell since the day he first heard that Jewell had been taken into custody. Bryant called the FBI looking for Jewell.
I had identified myself as his lawyer, said I understood that they had him, and they denied that he was there.
A short while later, Bryant called back and did manage to get through to Jewell. Jewell told his lawyer the FBI thought he was a hero and that they wanted his help making a training film on the bombing.
And it occurs to me, why in the world does the FBI need Richard to help them with a training film for a bombing?
I spoke with him on the phone, and he informed me more or less, what the heck are you doing? Do you know you're a prime suspect? And I was like, no.
And I basically tell him to get his ass out of that building as quickly as possible, and I'll see him at his apartment immediately thereafter.
Jewell was promptly released, and he's never been arrested. But now, almost 8 weeks later, night and day, his lawyers say, wherever he goes, Jewell is followed by the FBI. When Jewell goes out for a drive, the FBI is on his tail. Not just that one agent in the blue Jeep Cherokee, but a whole FBI convoy giving chase on the interstate and off. A total of 5 or 6 FBI vehicles.
How do you know that they're FBI?
Because they followed me from my house. They follow me everywhere I go. I mean, I know what time the shift change is. They followed me on foot when I went to Sears to buy a light bulb for my mother's nightlight that went out.
Deep down, do you think you will ever get a job as a cop?
No, sir. And that's something I'm having to deal with every day. I don't think I'll ever get to do the job that I love again.
Jay Leno called you Uni-Doofus. A federal agent was quoted as saying you were Uni-Bubba. Your mother was called the Uni-Mama.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, please clear my son's name.
You finally held a press conference.
Yes, sir.
Why?
It has to end. We have done everything they've asked. What do you want now? I mean, if there's something we haven't done, what is it? Why do they keep going on and on and on?
The FBI got what it wanted. It got the image of, we have our man and we have him quickly. The media got what it wanted. It got a dramatic headline. Everybody got what they wanted. The problem is they threw over the side an innocent man, Richard Jewell, and they've permanently destroyed parts of his life, damaged his life.
People will never forget my name. People will be 90 years old that were at the Olympic Games and go, do you remember when that bomb went off, that Jewell fella that they accused of that? Do you remember that? And people will be going, yeah, I remember that. Can you believe all that? It will never end, sir.
By the way, Mrs. Jewell says the FBI has still not returned her Tupperware or her Disney tapes.